Hey guys, welcome back to the AHA podcast. This is Pastor Allen. Now today's question is this: is it wrong for a Christian to use crude or profane language? I mean, after all, a lot of the words are found in the Bible anyways. We're going to find out on today's episode. Stick with us. All right, so today we're going to talk about what we talk about. Is it wrong for Christians to use curse words, profanity, coarse, crude language? And the answer is pretty simple from the Bible, and that is yes, it is absolutely a sin for a Christian to use bad language. It is a sin for a Christian to use curse words, bad words, crude words, etc., etc., etc. And quite honestly, guys, from a biblical perspective, you have to do some real mental gymnastics to try to justify any other position. The Bible is clear that Christians are not to use corrupt, unwholesome, or rotten language. Ephesians 4:29 puts it pretty plainly. Let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth. And that, like we said, is unwholesome communication, rotten communication, profane communication. It's not to come from us at all. Jesus is clear that corrupt or evil words only flow from the sinful, corrupted, evil heart. In Luke chapter 6 and verse 45, Jesus talks about how a good man will bring forth that which is good from the good treasure of his heart. But an evil man will bring out from evil treasure from his heart. He says this, for of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. And so when crude words, profane words, curse words, bad words are coming out of our mouth, it's only because they've been drawn up from the well of our heart. So yes, the biblical principle is plain, that Christians should not use bad language. But the more important principle is this: that as followers of Christ, you and I are called to use Spirit-filled words when we speak. And I think that's a really important distinction for those of us who are followers of Christ. It's that when you look at God's Word, it's not just that we're commanded to have clean speech. For the Christian, it's more than just avoiding the corrupt things. We are commanded then not just to have clean speech, but to have constructive speech, or speech that builds up those that hear. We read a little bit of Ephesians 4:29 originally, let no corrupt communication proceed out of your mouth. And that's clear enough. No potty words, people. But the rest of the verse says this, but that which is good to the use of edifying, that it may minister grace to the hearers. So, in other words, our words as Christians should not only avoid stinking up the place, no rotten communication, but our words should actually strengthen those people who hear them. So this includes our message, what we say. This includes our motive, why we say it. Colossians 4 and verse number 6 says this, let your speech be always with grace, seasoned with salt, that you may know how ye ought to answer every man. So in every situation, in every person we talk to, in every case we find ourselves, what comes out of our mouth as Christians ought to be Spirit-filled. It ought to be seasoned with grace in both our message and our motive. Yes, it should not be corrupt, but it should be more than clean. It should be constructive. Proverbs 18:21 reminds us that the tongue has the power of death and life. And so, should Christians avoid profane, potty talk, curse words? Absolutely. Should Christians absolutely have Spirit-filled words? Yes. That is the standard for every follower of Christ. Okay. But I can already hear the objections. But Pastor Allen, the Bible has bad words in it. Doesn't the Bible use most of the words that we call bad words today? Okay, no, it doesn't. The Bible uses words that we may use today in a crude or coarse fashion, but simply put, those words were not crude words in the time the Bible was translated. Additionally, the Bible never uses those words in crude or coarse ways. And so that is about as weak a straw man argument as you can create. No, the Bible doesn't use bad words. Well, I can hear other people object. Well, Pastor Allen, words are, they're ever changing, and doesn't culture give words their meaning, and doesn't acceptable language change over time? And all of that is true. I mean, even in the English language, there are words that would be okay to say in America that would be very offensive to say over in England. And so yes, culture does give meaning, and acceptable language does change over time. But the question then comes, well, since meaning and acceptability are subject to change, how can we really say there's any absolute standard to the words we can and can't use? And to that, I would simply say, come on, guys. There is absolutely a standard to what we should say and how we should say it. And to claim otherwise is, I think, simply to claim a willing ignorance, because we are talking not from a perspective that we are humanistic, moralistic philosophers. We're talking as people who claim to be Spirit-filled Christians. And yes, when you apply the biblical principles about what we ought to say and how we ought to say it, you can always come away with pretty clear guidance into what is acceptable to say and when it's acceptable to say it. Now, what do we take away from this? I think we need to remember this. Number one, our words are impactful. The power of death and life is in the tongue. Our words are impactful. The old adage, sticks and stones may break our bones, but words will never hurt me. That's garbage. It's not true. Remember, words are impactful. Remember, your words are revealing. Jesus talks about in Matthew 37 how it's by our words that we'll be justified and by our words that we'll be condemned. Our words are reflective. They are picturesque of what's in our heart. Bottom line is this: our words are important. And over and over and over again, Spirit-filled Christians are called to guard our tongues and to make sure that we are using all of our words to build up others and glorify God. I leave you with this, Psalm 19:14. The psalmist said, "Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer." This has been an aha moment. Hey guys, Pastor Allen again. If this content has been helpful for you, can I ask you, give the video a like, give the channel a subscribe, be a part of what the Lord is doing here through the AHA podcast. And I ask you too, would you share it with a friend? So many people out there are looking for the truth, and this is a small way that we can help spread it. Thanks for being a part of the AHA podcast.